This is what one of my journals look like. In a perfect world, every page, every journal I have would look like this. But you know what? It's not a perfect world. And that's not what got me here. This is where I've gotten to now. This almost made me want to quit. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Darrell. I'm a retired firefighter who just happens to be living life through art and journaling every step of the way. Over the last few videos, we've talked about the pocket notebook, and we talked about, wrong book, the catch-all system. It's where I take my pocket notebook, take my notes and stuff from my day, and I transfer it over into my catch-all system or my journal. The catch-all system is going to be, like we were saying before, quotes, list, things like that. And my journal is my daily stuff. Just the thoughts, anything I had. This is the third and final piece, the daily journal. Everything we talked about leads here. If the catch-all is the brain, the daily journal is the heart. I know it's kind of cheesy, but it was kind of cool. Okay, we'll get serious. I know I mentioned the heart. This is probably the most important part of the system. Okay, before we get rolling here, I just wanted to talk about a few things. Social media and people, gurus, talk about how journaling is life-changing. Oh, this changed my life. Not disagreeing with it. It can change your life. The thing that needs to be said is it changed their lives, but it doesn't mean if you open up your book and start journaling, it's going to just automatically change your life. You got to come up with a routine. You got to create the habit. Once you create that, then it could change your life. You can't go off of just somebody saying, oh, this changed your life. This is the way you do it. It doesn't work that way. You got to create that routine and create that habit. Like I said, it can change your life. Just don't expect it to change your life the day you start journaling. Let me give you an example. I love to journal at night. That is actually life-changing for me. When I set up the evenings to journal, what that does is it takes away that doom scrolling and watching TV before I go to bed. Now I'm journaling before I go to bed. So you spend 10, 15 minutes just kind of getting your thoughts out on paper and writing stuff down. Oh, I tell you what, it is life-changing for the aspect of I do sleep better. I'm one of those guys, when I go to bed, my mind does not shut off. It still doesn't shut off per se, but it's slowed down because I'm not doom scrolling. I'm not just tons of dopamine, just scrolling. That can be life-changing for you. Again, you still got to build that routine. You got to build that habit. Now, I know there's some people out there who always say, oh, you got to journal at 5 a.m. You got to journal at 6 a.m. It's so quiet. It's the only time it's quiet. Unless you live above a bar, I think midnight works good too. I'm notoriously a late person. I used to do all my art when I was doing graphic design and stuff. Man, I'd do it from 11, 12, 1 o'clock. And that's with kids and everything because everybody's in bed. The phone doesn't ring that late. If it does, it's, God forbid, it's probably an emergency. But yeah, the night's the same thing. Like I said, unless you live above a bar or you're in the middle of the city and it comes alive at that time, maybe Vegas. Vegas never sleeps, right? Don't get caught up in other people's schedules. You have to, this is something you have to work on your own. You have to create your own schedule. What works best for you? If it's like I said, going to bed, journaling before you go to bed helps you sleep and everything because you've kind of mind dumped. Or maybe it's in the morning you get up and you refresh, and people always say, well, when you get up in the morning, you can journal a little bit about, the day before. Why didn't you do it that night when it was fresh on your mind, when you had a million things going on in your head? I'm not saying one way's right, one way's wrong. You just got to pick what works for you. And sometimes that's going to take time. And that's where that habit and everything comes in. And then that could be life-changing. Which brings up another subject that I wanted to talk about before we get into daily journaling. And that's be careful only journaling when you feel pain or when, you've got heavy thoughts, deep thoughts that are, are troubling or, are heavy on you or weighing you down. Be careful that in your mind that you've just set up, I'm going to journal today because I need to get my feelings out. Don't be wrong, that's a great thing to do. But the problem is you need to journal the boring good stuff. People always think that you've got to have this philosophical thing that you write or whatever. No, you don't. You ought to see some of my journal stuff. I actually even carry on a conversation with myself sometimes like, oh, that was stupid. Why'd you write that? Or a lot of times I tell myself, hey, it's getting late. I need to be in bed. Good night. Put the pen down, So I just have fun with it. It gets you out of that, where everything just feels so heavy. You're just like, oh, this is fun, But back to the subject, though, is don't get it to the point that every time you're journaling, it's associated with something negative that you have to write down, or everything you write is always negative. Do it for the positive, too. Because if you just continually do it for the negative, unless you're a really negative person, hopefully you're not. Anybody I know is that negative, but try not to have journaling just associated with therapeutic, got to get my thoughts out because I'm having a bad day. Write the boring good stuff. Get in a conversation with yourself. Kind of in the lines of only writing down negative thoughts. Don't get caught up in all the names of the journals, like commonplace, bullet journaling, habit tracking. Start journaling. Start having a conversation with yourself. Make it negative, make it positive. Just write, doodle, draw. And then those things will come along where you'll pick up more things. Like I guess you're watching YouTube, so you can pick up more things on YouTube. You'll pick up names like you're probably going, ooh, commonplace, what's that? Ooh. A lot of y'all know what I'm talking about. But don't get caught up in the names. You'll learn those as you go, which still could be a bad thing because then you start learning all the different styles of journaling that people do out there that's been, a lot of them are based on some really deep history, which are really cool to study. But the problem is you get too caught up in it. It could take away the innocence of writing, of journaling. So don't lose that innocence. Learn some of those as you go and see if they work into your journaling, which, like the last ones did, this one leads into another one. Make sure you don't keep yourself from changing your journal as your life changes. I've had so many people who's like, oh, I only do this one way, blah, 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 but my life's changing, so I don't want to journal anymore because I've lost the excitement with it. Well, you lost the excitement because your life changed, but your journal didn't change. Change your journal. Change the style up. I'm going to talk about a little bit about how my style changed and why, like in the beginning of the video, I talked about how it almost made me quit. I didn't change. So make sure your journal's changing with your life. It's okay. It's okay if one day you're writing, next day you're illustrating, one day you're illustrating and writing, or you just write the rest of your life, or you want to put stickers in it. You want to put pictures in it. You got a commonplace book. You call a commonplace book. You want to put a sticker in it. The commonplace police aren't coming after you. Put a sticker in it. And if somebody says, oh, well, that's not a commonplace book, then you go, oh, you just made my journal. And then write a story about how the guy was a jerk because he told you weren't doing a commonplace right. The thing is you were journaling. You wrote, you sat down, you took the time. That's what journaling's for. I'm sorry, I get off my soapbox. So let's go on to the next one. Habit tracking does not work for me. Too much of I got to make these squares, and then I got to carry this pen because of this color and this color. And then It's notorious 3 or 4 days in, I'm done with habit tracking. The only habit I really need to track when I'm journaling is keep journaling. It's that sit down in the evenings and start writing. I'm not doom scrolling. I'm not watching TV. I'm journaling. Okay, now we set up some guidelines on what my thinking is on journaling. And I will show you how my journaling has evolved. Again, we talked about, I take a pocket notebook, I write down my daily stuff, quotes, to-do list, blah, blah, blah. I have my catch-all, and this pocket notebook was on the video, Why I Don't Carry Field Notes, if you want to see that. It was about a month ago. And then this one is my catch-all, and also a video on my catch-all, which was just a couple of weeks ago. You can see it's a little more methodical, has a little bit more on my list and stuff in it. And then this is my daily journal. As you can see, it's mainly writing. There is some illustrative stuff in here. Like I got me a new DJI, which I'm filming on now. Hopefully I hit the focus right. Last video, I was a little bit off on my focus. And there is some illustrative journaling in there. I do doodle at times. But if you noticed, it's a lot of wording. It's just writing. I've done more writing than anything. Now I still do love to do lettering. Like I love doing, oops, there's a little mower and crock pot when I was cooking dinner one night. I even drew, I was bored at a doctor's office and I drew what I was looking at the door while I was sitting there. Works great. Didn't know I'd been sitting there for an hour. Felt like 10 minutes because I drew the door. And then somebody walked through the door and they called my name. And if you know my last name, I yelled out, "What'd you call me?" And everybody in the place laughed. Thought it was pretty funny. I even wrote about that I think I wrote about it here in the journal. It's just fun stuff. But as you can see, there's a little stick figure guy, me moving a refrigerator by myself because everybody was gone. So I had to move a fridge that had gone out at my daughter's house. So it's just little fun things. But most of it's writing, which is really odd because let me show you how I started. Well, I actually started a long time ago. I was always writing. Even in my planners, man, I used to write, like this was me playing disc golf, talking about how I was doing my field work, how much work I was putting in, and I wrote in all my daily planners. And I've got planners, they're in boxes somewhere. I think they're out in a storage barn or something, but I got planners from 6, 7, 8 years ago that I just wrote tons of notes in, and that was like my journaling system. If that's what you want to do, that's a great journaling system. I love looking back at these things because it has dates and everything with them. My father passed away, and I had this sketchbook, and I'm just sketching goofy stuff. A lot of stuff I do now is houses, but I had this little sketchbook, and I'm just jotting down different things. And there's some notes. This is weird stuff, just skulls and stuff. Here's just some goofy, I don't even know what that is. That's just weird. But then my dad passed away, and I kind of doodled some of his favorite sayings. One of the things he used to do is he'd go to Waffle House and he'd ask for pancakes, but he'd always say little sayings, same old, same old. So this was kind of cool. And I thought, I really need to get into journaling. I really enjoy it. I've journaled different ways. I've always had the pocket notebook. So that was always a daily thing anyway. So then I started playing around, and you can see there's some more illustrative stuff. But what I was doing is, it wasn't an illustrative journal. What I was doing is I was still doing my daily doodles, and they just happened to be all around journaling stuff. So, here's April. There's not much said, And then here's some more doodles. Just, I don't know why everybody had to be polka dotted. Sorry, I could do this as an overhead shot, but I could spend 2 hours making these pretty little shots, but we're trying to go for authenticity here. But you can see I've got journal stuff down the sides, but you get the point. These were just doodles next to journaling, which was like, oh, this is kind of cool. If y'all are interested, I could do a flip through on this with more detail. So it's just, but you can see this has nothing to do with journaling. This was just me sketching. So then what I started doing was like here's some sketching. It was just sketching. Then I started thinking, oh, what if I started putting the doodles with my journaling. So there came a little more journaling and doodling, a little more. I was even trying different colored pens. I'm not real big on that. And then next thing you know, it turns in, that was still fun. I still can recall stuff from it. I still enjoy the moments. Doesn't look great, but who cares? There's some kind of time started turning into a comic book where I thought, oh man, this style is really cool. You can see there's some more. This is a really cool style. So I went out and bought journals, and I started, that's my hockey journal. I'll show you that here in a second. So I started going out. I bought me a Stillman and Burn. This is the Zeta series, but I got the thick paper because I thought, maybe someday I'll color it. But you can see on here, I really started getting into the illustrative journaling. Now the difference in this one, this was actually the second book. The first book is pencil, and I was going back in with pen. These are all pen. I didn't pencil any of them because I wanted to, one, save time, because this does take a lot of time. So that was a lot of fun doing this, and I really enjoyed it. The problem is, now when I did pencil and pen, it took me 45 minutes to an hour. When I went straight to pen, it took me 20 to 30 minutes, which was really cool. It cut down the time, but still the problem I was having, and the reason why I almost quit, and I actually stopped for like a month or a month and a half, is because it just got to the point it was time consuming. It wasn't what I had. Like if I'd go walking, I'd always put a sign that I saw when I was walking. I'd put how many steps. There's my lunch. There's my dinner. I always had those fun things to do. I put down what music I was listening to on Spotify. I would put the score of a game or something I was watching or listening to, and I would just do little fun things. And this was a blast. The problem is when you get 2 books in, it's time consuming. And it got to the point where I missed 1 or 2 days. And then when I missed 1 or 2 days, it was like, oh man, I have to go and draw for 30 more minutes and blah, 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 blah. So it became tougher for me. And you can see the progression. It started tailing off. And so I started writing more. And then, there's November 17th. Then it goes to this was actually some stuff from a video. So if you watch one of the earlier videos on the channel, you'll see these because this is about the time I started. But there's December, but then it skips over to the end of December, and there's April. So I missed quite a few months there, but it's just because I got so caught up into illustrative journaling that my life had changed, but my journaling didn't change. I needed to change my journaling. So that's what I did. I went back to picking up where if I wanted to doodle and I had time, I would doodle. But if not, man, here I'm trying to show a non-doodling page, but here I would just journal. So that's the system. I got to realizing that I have no rules. And one of the things I forgot to mention is if you don't like the paper, change the paper. If you're halfway through a book and you don't like the book, why force yourself to use it? You're just going to burn yourself out journaling. Change books. If you get ghosting on a page and you don't like the paper, you get feathering from the ink and you don't like the paper, you don't like the book, change the book. It doesn't matter. The book's not finished. Heck, if you want to finish it, just scribble on each of the last 30 pages and just say, yeah, okay, this book's done. Just write like I was saying, but I don't like the paper on this. The pens do not work on this, and I don't feel like writing with a different pen. Heck, write that on there. Sometimes I've even not, I don't have it with me, but sometimes I haven't finished a book and I'll put C blah, blah, blah book for a continuation or something. You'll make it as a continued type deal. Because, I don't care if anybody reads my stuff. I don't make it a practice to say that I'm writing for people to read this. But I'm also not ashamed if my kids look back, or my grandkids, or my great-grandkids, or further on down the line, look back on this and go, wow, that old man was pretty cool. You know, he did some fun stuff. You know, I don't mind that because that's the one thing I missed about my parents, my dad. We always told him to write his stories down, and he never did. Didn't get a chance. It was quick. So, you know, I'm preserving, I'm creating. So this is kind of cool. Like I said, I try not to get in the mindset of somebody's reading this because that's why I kind of teach myself, or it's kind of why I tell myself that I'm in a conversation with myself, because then it's just me having a conversation. But there's funny things in here. Like my grandkids have said something and I'll write it in here. One of these days I might turn it into a comic book or something because I have some really cool ones. One of the other things I tried when I started too was I just bit off more than I could chew and I never got a chance to finish it. But I have this, it's all the trades they had on a certain day, you know, and there's little cartoons with it. I had a great time with this. Problem is I did it during the off season, so there was a lot of news and rumors, and I got into that. But then I kind of got burnt out on all the rumors and stuff. But it was fun to kind of go through here. This was last year, but you know, there's me sitting in a chair. But life changed. I didn't finish it, but I'm okay with it because the stuff I did capture is really cool. I think it's cool. You know, I do want to do more cartooning. I think it would be fun. So, and then my kids got me a jersey, put my name on it. I almost had them put son of a Fitch, but I didn't think some people would like that. So, but just some fun stuff. So that's kind of my journaling. But the biggest thing is though, life changes, journals change. Okay. Don't wait too long like I did to where it almost became a chore. You know, break the rules. There's nothing that says you have to stay with this book or you have to stay with this style or this system. You know, do what you want to do, what you're comfortable with, what you enjoy doing. Get off my other soapbox here. All right, guys, I know there's a lot more rules that I don't really think are rules. And I know some of the stuff I'm saying, well, you just gave rules. I'm not trying to give rules. I'm just trying to give suggestions on, don't get locked in on it. You know, create your own system. You know, take from other things. Like I always said, training is black and white, especially like in the fire service. Training is black and white. But we train so we can handle the gray. And that's how I want you to kind of look at journaling. Everybody's teaching you all these things. That's great. Take these systems, make your own system. It doesn't have to have a name to it. It doesn't have to be specific. Take all these systems and all you're learning. Just make sure you're not at the point of FOMO and you're just fear of missing out and you're learning all these systems, but you're not applying anything. Mesh them however you want, call them whatever you want, but just come up with a system that works for you. And don't forget to change it as life changes. I appreciate all the support, all the love and everything, and all the great comments, man. And it's just been fun. But let me know what kind of rules that you've bent or you've pushed or you've broken or that frustrates you or something because of how they've taken something so simple and put it into such a structured system. It's kind of like a diet. You give me a structured diet, I'm going to last a day or two. I mean, as you can tell. If you slowly take sugar away from me, especially like sweet tea, and you do those little things and you can help me get away from this and that, I'm good. I look at it like that with journaling. Learn the different things. Learn that black and white training. But play around in the gray. Come up with your own system. If you missed part one with the why I don't carry field notes on the pocket notebooks, and you missed part two on the catch-all, I'll try to link them down here below, but I think one of them is probably going to be up here in the corner. So, and guys, remember, the best system is not the prettiest, the most elaborate, the ones that are going to give you all the likes on social media. It's the one you actually show up for. See you on the next one.